The pioneering spirit is nothing new to agriculture, as innovation has made farming in America the most productive and technologically advanced in the world. Yet, tomorrow will present a new set of challenges that'll require new ideas, inventions, and innovations. That is what Farm Next is all about, showing you the future of farming. From autonomous robots to cutting-edge digital tools to better ways to fertilize your crops and increase soil health, this program will give you a glimpse of the exciting future agriculture has in store. Stay tuned to see what's next on Farm Next. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Farm Next. I'm Max Armstrong, and I'm thrilled to be a part of giving you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Before we get to what's next, let's talk about a transformational technology that's here right now, microbes that can replace nitrogen fertilizer. Not that many years ago, the co-founders of Pivot Bio dreamed of creating a better way to provide nitrogen to crops. And like the inventors you'll hear from today, they dedicated time, effort, and capital to turn their dream into a reality. Today, Pivot Bio's products deliver nitrogen to corn, wheat, and sorghum and have been used by farmers across the country. Pivot Bio knows just how challenging it is to transform an idea into a product and to get it into the hands of farmers. So Pivot Bio, together with Farm Progress, scoured the country and found 10 entrepreneurs with the potential to be that next big idea for the future of agriculture. Each of these companies is vying for a chance to showcase their idea at this year's Farm Progress Show in Boone, Iowa. In each episode, you'll see these cutting-edge innovations in action. You'll meet the brilliant minds behind each idea, and you'll learn more as each participant presents their ideas to leaders in investing, agribusiness, and farming. In today's episode, we take a look at Salin 24/7. It's a startup based in Iowa that is developing an autonomous robot for corn and soybean growers that can plant, apply nitrogen, and much more. Stay tuned to learn about Salin 24/7. But first, here's a short video from Pivot Bio. Take a look.
We're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck.
Yeah, in your cab.
There are over 2 million farmers in the United States. One of them is about to win some cash for their local FFA chapter.
I don't know that the public knows what they want out of sustainability.
If they're asking us to grow cover crops and to plant non-GMO, our expenses are going to go up. Yields are going to go down. At that point, we're not sustainable.
All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of, aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer?
You have to have nitrogen.
It's really a microcosm of one of the biggest questions that we face. Can we feed the world and save the world?
Visit pivotbio.com/originals to see these shows and more.
So what we're doing, Dan, is we're going around talking to all the farmers in Iowa because we're trying to build the ultimate farm truck. What is the best truck?
Let's see what you guys are rolling with right now.
Lights are critical.
Flatbed.
Toolboxes.
You know, workbench height.
These guys need a truck that's ready to work, has power, can get dirty.
Follow us as we design, build, and give away the ultimate farm truck.
On the farm, there's no such thing as a day without work. For some jobs, there's only the hard way, the way it's always been done. But when it comes to nitrogen, now there's a better way with Pivot Bio. Farmers deserve a nitrogen that works as hard as they do, one that stays with the crop until the job is done. It's time to turn to a better nitrogen.
Welcome back to Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. In today's episode, we take a look at Salin 24/7. It's a startup based in Iowa that is developing an autonomous robot for corn and soybean growers that can plant, apply nitrogen, and much more. Before we meet CEO and co-founder Dave Krogh, here's a short video about the company from the field. Take a look.
My name is Dave Krogh, and I'm the CEO of Salem 247. Our vision is to bring small, efficient machines to agriculture. On our family farm up near Eagle Grove, Iowa, a lot of our corn was flat on the ground. The agronomist came out and he basically said our problem was soil compaction. A typical tractor pulling, say, a 24-row planter would probably weigh about 32 to 36,000 pounds. The soil compaction is pretty significant under a tractor that big. The yield reduction from soil compaction is probably in the 10 to 20% range, and we think with small equipment we can help farmers increase their yields and make more money. Our prototype is an autonomous planter, so we have a motor on each track powered by a battery. We believe in renewable energy, so we're electric, but we actually charge our batteries with 100% biodiesel. The pressure under our tracks is about 1 pound per square inch. The idea is that the farmer wouldn't give up their big, say, 24-row planter for a 4-row planter. What they would have is 6 4-row planters or 4 6-row planters, so they would have multiple planters in the field working at one time. We're breaking big machines into little machines and increasing yields. We can get the job done in the same amount of time that they're doing today, or if not quicker. We can run 24 hours a day. We can use it for planting, we can use it for spraying, we can use it for side dressings. We can use it for a number of different operations in the field, not just planting. Farmers have told us that we can get in the field a lot quicker for things like post-emerge spraying and side dressing nitrogen. We could get in a field and spray 5 minutes after a heavy rain. That's actually very valuable to a farmer. We've talked to dozens, maybe hundreds of farmers about what we're doing, and we've incorporated a lot of their ideas already into what we're doing. The proof is in the bottom line: higher yields, lower input costs. Farmers are some of the smartest people I know business-wise. If they could see where they could even a 20% yield increase if they address soil compaction, they would pay attention to that. And there is data out there that shows that that's the case. These are all problems that can be addressed with technology and with innovation. If you see robots in the field in 20 years, you won't think twice about it. That's the future.
With me now is Dave Krogh, a co-founder of Salem 247. Also, I guess, Chief Executive Officer, right, Dave?
That's right, Max.
It's great to have you in the studio with us here.
Great to be here, Max.
I noticed you have not 1, but 2, and 3 degrees from Iowa State, right? Tell us about your experiences, your educational background as well.
Yeah, well, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, north central Iowa, with the intention of going back to the farm at some point. So I went to Iowa State, got a degree in agronomy, bachelor's degree in agronomy. It was clear that getting back to the farm probably wasn't going to happen, so I decided to change gears a little bit. Went into economics. I went into grad school in economics at Iowa State, and was actually at Iowa State many years, but got a master's and PhD in economics there.
I did note there's nothing in the way of agricultural engineering here. That would be a more typical path, one would think, toward this particular invention.
Well, yeah, I'm relying on my son actually for the engineering side of the business. He's an engineer, actually a graduate of the University of Iowa, and happens to be a really good engineer. So I don't have to cover that base.
We have seen that father-son teamwork before in the area of inventions and entrepreneurs, and it probably doesn't work for everyone, but you must have a great relationship with your son. We get along pretty well. We actually both live in Des Moines, but our office and shop is in Ames. So I pick Ben up every morning, and we have about 45 minutes to talk about the day, and then on the return home have to have about the same to talk about things. And so it's been great. Was there what you might call a light bulb moment or an aha moment when you said, we got to go down this path. This is something.
Well, so I've been thinking about things like soil health for many years, growing up on a farm. Sure. We had issues with soil compaction on the farm growing up. But probably in 2015, I think it was, we had an incident in one of our fields where the corn went flat. We had some winds come through, the corn went flat, and we had an agronomist out. And he basically said we had a soil compaction problem. We had limited potassium uptake in the corn stalks. It weakened the stalks, and then they went down. So that was probably the aha moment when I thought, well, this can't happen again. We need to do something about it. And so our solution was to look at getting big, heavy equipment off the field and replacing it with small equipment.
Maybe several pieces of small equipment, right?
That's right. So, farmers, if I would go to a farmer and say, give up your 24-row planter for a 4-row planter, it probably wouldn't go over too well. So the idea is that a farmer, instead of a 24-row planter, say, would have 6 4-row planters. So they don't give up the capacity. It's just in multiple units that work together in the field.
How important is ease of grower use to you? The ability for that farmer to have no problems, no challenges, or very few of them.
Yeah, that's absolutely critical, Max. So we have to figure that out. We're not to that point yet. So we have a prototype in the field. It's actually our second prototype. We did field testing this year and learned a great deal about the positives and negatives of our prototype. So we have some work to do, but ultimately the goal is to make this really easy for the farmer. That's really critical.
And the tracks spread that weight out across the topsoil, right?
Right. So to begin with, our machines are fairly light. And then on our prototype, we actually have 4 tracks. They're electric powered. And the pressure under the tracks, or the PSI under the tracks for the chassis, is less than 1 pound per square inch, which is really low. Now, when we put the planter on, we go up a little bit. What we actually found out in testing this year is we're probably a little too light. We in our testing, we had some compacted soils we were going through, and we actually couldn't keep the disc openers in the ground because we were too light. So we actually had to add some weight, which we didn't want to do, but for the planting, it was important to keep the disc openers in the ground. So that was a key learning for us this spring.
I can tell you are passionate about the product. What really lights your fire here about bringing this to market?
Yeah, I mean, all through my career, I've been lucky to be involved in a lot of entrepreneurial sort of efforts. I just like creating things of value, and I love agriculture. So bringing something like this to agriculture, which I think has a lot of value for farmers, is really important. So, I help teach a class at Iowa State around entrepreneurship. We tell our students that if you start a business, you're going to wake up every morning with fear and exhilaration. So the exhilaration is, excitement and passion about what you're doing. The fear is fear of failure, but that kind of keeps you going to make things better.
It's fun to hear your story, Dave, and we have some folks who want to hear more from you coming up here momentarily. Now that we've learned how Salem 24/7 got to where they are today, our panel will be here next to scope out where the company could be heading next when we return after these brief messages.
Unscripted, unfiltered, unapologetic.
It's a suburban mom, and having to satisfy that suburban mom on social media.
Diner stops and real talk. The voice of farmers, not politicians or promise makers. Just honest conversation about agriculture's biggest issues. Nothing is off limits.
Well, have you ever seen a GMO peanut?
How about organic tuna?
Organic tuna. That's a good one.
This is The Farmer's Table, an original series from Pivot Bio.
The United States of America can be very different from one state to another, but one thing every state has in common is agriculture. And the farms across America are like the patchwork of a quilt that binds our nation together, and each state is represented in their own unique way.
Hey everyone, I'm Charlie Behrens, and welcome to Agricultural States of America. We're going to test your knowledge about the agriculture of different states and hopefully give you a bit more appreciation for the great things farmers are producing across the country. Today we're starting off with my home state and America's dairyland, Wisconsin. All right, so when you think of Wisconsin, what do you think of? Aside for beer and cheese and people wearing cheese while drinking beer. How about cranberries? Now, believe it or not, Wisconsin is the top producer of cranberries in the United States. In fact, the cranberry is native to Wisconsin, and it's the state's leading crop in terms of acreage and value. All right, you can always go to pivotbio.com/originals and explore more agriculture from your favorite states and test your knowledge to win great prizes and more.
Hey, I got an announcement for all of America's farmers. You want to win the ultimate farm truck? You got to sign up right here. And if you do, it could be you that wins it.
What does it take to deliver nitrogen to your crop? Fossil fuels, lots of them, from places near and far. Then you need ships, trains, trucks. Each step someone gets. Once it's on your farm, you have to store, manage, and drag it across the field. Each step you spend. With Pivot Bio, the nitrogen you need is already on seed. Our microbes deliver nitrogen no matter the weather, right from the kernel. The nitrogen you need, now on seed. From Pivot Bio.
Welcome back to Farm Next. We're now on to the final portion of today's program. That's our panel examination. And joining me here now are the panelists, Karsten Timmy, first of all, CEO and co-founder of Pivot Bio. Roger Underwood, an entrepreneur and investor in the agriculture industry. And finally, Lisa Peterson, a grower from Osage, Iowa. Well, Karsten, what excites you about this part of the show?
Well, I'm looking forward to connecting as entrepreneurs and talking about the problems that motivate us. For me, it's all about getting that great idea and turning it into a solution to help growers.
Roger, you have a role here as one who has invested and started a company.
Yeah, I started a company in 1982, Max, with my best friend from high school. And over the years, we grew it up to a couple $100 million in sales, and we sold it 10 years ago. So today, I like to invest in interesting, inventive ag companies that are going to change the future of agriculture.
Lisa, on your farm in Iowa, you're very much involved in the operation. Who else is there?
Well, I am third generation on the family farm. My mom and dad are still involved in the farming operation, and we have the fourth generation that's coming up as well.
Excellent. Karsten, what are your initial thoughts about Salem 24/7?
Well, I'd like to start and just get a better sense of what's unique. This is a very, very competitive space, the idea of robotics, autonomy on a farm, and what do you think sets Salem apart?
Yeah, that's a great question, Karsten. So really, one of the things that sets us apart is the size that we're looking at. It's small, but it's not a micro machine, not a micro robot, but it is quite a bit smaller than traditional farm equipment. And it doesn't require a tractor. A lot of the folks working on autonomous now are working on making existing tractors autonomous. Our approach is actually to take the tractor out of the picture and put the power right on the actual implement. So that's what we've done.
Now, it seems like that footprint could have a lot of value throughout the entire growing season. Are there some opportunities mid-season that we should be expecting to hear more about?
Yeah, so we started with a planter. Probably wasn't the easiest place to start, but it was kind of the logical place to start. So our prototype, our first prototype was a planter. Our second prototype was actually designed a little bit differently. So we started with a planter on it, but we can actually take the planter off. We can put a boom and a tank on, and then we have an autonomous liquid system for post-emerge spraying and side dressing. And we're going to do a proof of concept this summer on a Y-drop side dress application. So the idea is to leverage the components on the machine across all the different farm operations.
Side dressing is always a challenge, dodging rains and dealing with the weather and not getting corn too tall. So what benefits or advantages would your machine offer us from that perspective?
Great question. So, one of the reasons that farmers have not used side dress nitrogen historically is the risk of not getting it on. Like you say, it stays wet in June and early season, and you just can't get in to put your nitrogen on. So our approach is to use light equipment so that you actually can get in the field no matter the conditions. And farmers have told us they like the idea of being able to get in the field 5 minutes after a heavy rainstorm, whether they're spraying or in this case side dressing. So the advantage is we're light and we can actually get in the field before some of the heavy equipment that's used today.
Dave, I'm interested to know if you and your company has any plans to tear a page out of the big tech playbook and combine revenue-generating software with your autonomous equipment.
So a service model,
yes.
Roger. So actually our plan is to start with a service model. Some call it farming as a service. I call it custom farming. But the reason we're starting there is because we have a learning curve to go up as well as we're putting these machines out there. So we think we'll probably be in the field as a service model for a couple years before we actually sell the machines to farmers.
How many acres and how quickly can a robot cover those acres? And also how long between fills, right? You think about the logistics and the labor that we have to have as farmers to keep those machines going.
No, that's a great question, Lisa. So ultimately, it has to be a completely hands-off approach. So the farmer will not have to babysit these machines in the field. So our prototype today, it's a 4-row, 30-inch planter, relatively small, and it can plant about 5 acres an hour. And so if you had 4 of those in the field together, you could get about 20 acres an hour done. We actually think we need to go a little bit bigger with our machines. So we're looking at actually going from 4 rows to 6 or potentially 8 rows. And that's 30-inch rows. We probably are going to have to do narrow rows as well. So it gets to be a little bit more of a task in terms of energy use when you get bigger like that. But the unit economics look a lot better with more rows. But we know it has to be, the numbers have to work for the farmers, it has to be easy, and that's our goal is to get to that point.
So not using a tractor and being totally self-autonomous, how do you deal with the power issue?
Yeah, that's a challenge, and we are electric right now, so we're battery powered. We have a very large battery. It's about a 300-pound battery, 48 volt, 10 kilowatt hour battery. It will last about 90 minutes planting 4 rows. So that we either have to do battery swapping or we have to charge the battery on the machine. So we've actually tried both. Right now we prefer putting a generator on the machine to keep the battery charged. We expect battery technology to get better over time, but it probably will take some time to get to the point where, people tell us we need 12 hours before we recharge or swap a battery. We're not anywhere close to that right now. So that's why we like the generator on the machine that keeps the battery charged.
One of the hot questions today is farmers want to repair their own equipment, but they're prevented from doing so. I'm just curious, have you thought about that question?
We have thought about that question. We'd love farmers to be able to take care of their own machines, but there is a bit of complexity involved in these machines, and so we feel that our company will have to be involved in some kind of support and maintenance and so forth, or our dealers would be involved in that.
I want to think about data as a little bit more of a granular from on the field. Right now when we're planting, we're going through the field, looking at the monitor, looking at singulation, downforce, and making adjustments on the fly. How do you foresee that happening for the monitoring of the machines in the field?
Yes, right now we have a lot of sensors on our machines, so we do monitor that kind of data, but ultimately the data has to be used to make adjustments and on the fly, And we think machine learning is probably going to play a big role in terms of using the data, especially to monitor what's going on. You know, we've had farmers ask us that they're nervous about, you know, sending a planter into the field and coming back a few hours later. You know, who's going to actually pay attention to what's going on and monitor? There's going to have to be humans involved to some extent, but the more we can use computers and machine learning, the more efficient the process is going to be.
If you could state what you think your business is going to look like 10 years from today, give us that picture.
Yeah, 10 years, that's a long time, Roger. A lot can happen in 10 years, but I would hope that we're a major player in the autonomous farm equipment side of the market, at least in the segment of smaller equipment. I know there's others that are working on autonomy, and I think it makes sense to work together to bring autonomy to agriculture, but we would like to be the leader, at least in this kind of mid-size, smaller farm equipment segment of the market.
I was going to ask you about that in terms of geography and target market and size of farm. Is there one that you think is just really right for your tractor?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. We're starting with the Midwest because we know agriculture here in the Midwest, so corn and soybean farms. There's probably some opportunity on the coast with some of the specialty crops. We just don't know that market that well. So we're starting in the Midwest. We think our solution is scalable, so we think it works well with small farms as well as large farms. Probably in the early days, we target smaller farms. We think our smaller machines actually make sense in smaller fields, irregularly shaped fields, and things like that. So they're probably targeted more towards a smaller farm.
We wish we had more time. We're out of time, unfortunately, but we appreciate so much what you've shared with us, and we wish you well going forward, Dave.
All right. Thank you, Max.
All right, panelists, thank you so much for your insightful questions. And I want to remind our audience to go to farmnext.com, where you can view other episodes of this show. There you can learn about all of the companies and all of the innovators on this season of Farm Next. That's all the time we have today. Join us next time on Farm Next, the show that gives you a front row seat into what's next in the world of agriculture. Farm Next has been brought to you by Pivot Bio. Pivot Bio, the nitrogen that stays put, whether or not. Farm Next is produced by 22 Creative Group in association with REL Productions and has been a presentation of Farm Progress Broadcast. If you'd like more information about Farm Next, please visit pivotbio.com/farmnext.